What situation or issue caused you to walk away from a friendship without another word to your friend again? She said, I'm sorry, but I have my own issues to worry about, after I told her my father had just died unexpectedly. My best mate in high school. Top bloke, shirt off your back kinda fella. We experienced everything together. All the pre- and post-pubescent stuff. First fuck around with illegal stuff, drugs, drinks, you name it. At the time, both of us were heavily involved in trafficking weed through our respective schools, and due to my size, I was a debt collector of sorts for kids who had stiffed the local dealers. Then, through an unfortunate series of events, I cleaned myself up and dropped anything that wasn't legal. Doug, though, he was having too much fun doing his thing. We still caught up as often, but this time I was just on the piss, not shooting gear or smoking dope. He would always ask, I would always decline. This pissed Doug off to the point he cut contact with me one day, really abruptly. Didn't feel the need to pursue a reason. Fast forward about 10 years, me ma rings me, tells me that Doug had rocked up at my folks asking to catch up and bury the hatchet as he was clean. So she gave him me address and he was coming over. The missus didn't know about Doug and was fast asleep anyway, so I just left the door open a crack so I could hear his car pull up. Had a real bad feeling it though, to the point where I grabbed the pacifier, a length of thick red gum I'd fashioned into a cudgel from my high school woodwork days that I usually keep near the door, and slid it hidden from sight near the couch. Still don't know why. Moments later, hear a car pull up. I go outside to meet him, and could immediately tell something was up. Firstly, Doug was fucking flying, pupils like 5-cent pieces. So much for being clean. Second, instead of his crappy Holden we used to bomb around Brody in, he was driving some old Volvo. Now I know his family was the same as mine. Pretty much bogan, welfare, and die-hard Holden lovers, so it struck as odd as hell. We used to nick a few cars for insurance jobs back in the day too. Damn, I haven't thought about that in years. Anyway, after an awkward handshake, I motioned him around the back to the shed, basically my man cave. Hit the lights, grab a beer and toss one over to him. Fuck me, he had had a rough time. Thin as a whip now, couple of dodgy neck and facial tats. He was pretty fidgety, I guess from the gear he was obviously on. He was rambling about his stint inside, not surprising, how his family had all moved back up north, and how he was clean now. I stopped him there and called him out. Basically said bullshit, can't remember exactly what I said. He insisted it was from cold medicine or something. Pfft. The whole time he was looking around the shed, but only at certain things. Expensive things. Power tools. Gym kit. My gun safe in particular. I didn't like where this was going, so told him we can catch up later on the week or something, I gotta go to bed. He was cool with that, smiled, patted me on the back and jumped back in his car after I walked him out. I stick me head in to say see ya, checked the ignition, of course there was no key. Couple of days later, I note the gun safe had pry marks on the paint. Now this fucker is locked up good, solid steel, anchored to the concrete. It ain't opening unless I open it. Aussie law is pretty hardcore with that shit. Call up the cops, tell them what's happened. They come around and have a squiz. I let them know I'm pretty sure I know who tried to open it. Gave them Doug's full name, left it at that. Haven't heard from the bloke in near 15 years. Frankly, don't care if I do. This is honestly the most Australian thing I've ever read. All jokes, even though I'm not joking, you're probably a kangaroo short of the most Australian short story in the world record. Aside, good on you for getting straight and sticking to it. Our daughters went to preschool together, and so we started socializing, with play dates 2 or 3 times a week for about a year. The kids would play and we would drink coffee and chat. When I had to take my husband for surgery, she offered to watch my kid. It was the very first time she'd ever watched her without me there. I came back a few hours later to find my 3-year-old sitting in a corner looking as if she'd been crying. The ex-friend launched into this really detailed story about how my daughter had repeatedly tried to take a toy from her daughter, and so she'd had to give her a timeout, and my daughter was upset at the discipline. Got my kid in the car, and asked what had happened. She said that she and her friend had argued over a toy. Ex-friend had gotten right into her face and screamed at her, so close that she had sprayed my daughter's face with spittle. Then ex-friend slapped her and slammed her into the wall. I pulled over and felt the back of my kid's head. There was a big lump on it. So we turned around and drove straight to the police station. The police interviewed me and my daughter. I later found out that they sent officers to interview ex-friend, and on the strength of their observations, Child Protective Services was brought in. She'd been beating her daughters fairly regularly with a belt. There were lots of injuries in various stages of healing, including a broken rib. Ex-friend got a suspended sentence and lost custody of her 2 children to her mother-in-law until she worked through an anger management and parenting program. I don't know if she ever completed it. Here's the worst part. I spent 2 or 3 hours a week with that woman for a year, and I had no clue she abused her children. None. Nothing she said ever raised red flags. I never saw her threaten or physically discipline her kids in public. Her daughters were very quiet and well-behaved, maybe a little too eager to please adults, but nothing really remarkable. She never left marks in visible places. John has enlightened me to the white man's plight and to the threat of the Jew. I cannot abide my brother betting a Jew without intervening. If you continue to see that woman, I will kill both of you. Probably the darkest part of my life. This was my best friend of 11 years, a surrogate brother, an integral part of my childhood, and he'd threatened to kill me and an innocent woman because of her religion. There were no classic warning signs, no slippery slope, at least that I saw. He just started hanging out with some punk kid, and a few weeks later his head was shaved, and he was a big fan of eugenics. I haven't talked to him since. Chris, if you're reading, I'm sorry I wasn't a strong enough friend to get you out of there. I'm sorry I couldn't keep you from whatever made you so hateful. I hope you've come past your anger and I hope you're happy. I still think of you, often. You're the reason I survived as long as I have. My family disowned me because I converted to Judaism, not only to marry my husband but because I felt whole. I haven't spoken to my brothers in 3 years. They refer to our twins as Jew babies. The last family gathering we attended on my side, my family admitted their hatred of Jews and my mother tried to fight me. I have a somewhat fixed relationship with my mother, but it's very thin. I will never forgive my stepfather or brothers for the bullshit they have pulled. Growing up, I didn't have many close friends. I was a bit of a social outcast, a bit of a loner, and it wasn't until after college when I truly met friends whom I cared about like family. The sad part is I cared about them like family, but it seemed like they didn't feel the same way about me. Flash forward about 10 years. I've had these friends for a long time and I considered them my very best friends. My dad became suddenly ill. I contact my friends, give them the heads up that my dad wasn't doing well. They said, "Whatever you need, we're there for you, man." My dad quickly gets worse and eventually passes away. I of course give my friends the heads up, tell them he passed. I get the, "So sorry man," and the like. I then pass word about the dates and times for the funeral and wake. They didn't show up. I can understand if they had work, or no car, and I had a couple of friends whom honestly and wholeheartedly couldn't make it. I also had friends who did. But these close friends couldn't even have bothered to at least call to say they couldn't go or apologize for not going. This single action by them killed a 10-year-long friendship. The sad part is, they went out of their way when another friend's mother passed away years ago. But for my dad, nothing. Did they know your dad? Most people I know only go to funerals to pay respects to the deceased. We would feel odd being at the funeral of someone we didn't know on a personal level. Perhaps they felt similarly and didn't mean any slight against you, just may not have felt it appropriate to attend if they didn't know him personally. One of my best friend's girlfriend that I had known for 3 years, very good friend with both of them, had this crazy thought that I was in love with her and tried to steal her from him. He believed her, and so did a lot of my other very good friends. I told them, if that what you think of me as a person after all these years, then fuck off. This was during a party after we graduated. Fuck her for manipulating my friends. I actually had my boyfriend's friend try and sleep with me. He wasn't in love with me. Just horny. He was also engaged to a friend of mine and still is. When I told my so what happened, this friend started slandering me to all our friends and told a completely different story. He exaggerated what happened and placed all the blame on me, and tried to make himself look like a victim. 3 years of friendship was lost because he couldn't keep his dick in his pants while his fiancée and my boyfriend were both working. When I found out he was messaging all my friends privately saying that if they stay friends with me they will fuck up in life because I'll take them down a bad path. I honestly don't know why he did thought this, but I never spoke to him again after that. She accidentally emailed me when she meant to email someone else. In the email, she was talking shit about me. I deleted it, cried, never talked to her again. Good on you for deleting it. I have some fucked up compulsion to keep that sort of shit, and read it years later only to feel crappy about all over again. When they laugh at your pain and suffering when you are serious. Exactly why I hate sharing anything with my family. Do you have a similar story? Leave a comment and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this one.